Hi guys, welcome back. All right, so today we're going to be looking at the third track from Death's fourth album, Human. I recently did, so this song is called Together as One. I recently did a cover for it, so it's probably in the link below. So if you just click on that, you can check it out. Don't forget to subscribe to my page. I've had a lot of new subscribers, so thank you so much for all your sort of time that you're spending watching my videos. I hope these lessons are useful. I'm planning on basically trying to go through the entire of Human album because it's a very important album to me. And I think for anyone that's trying to get into death metal, into the slightly more technical side of it, it's always that album I think is a particularly good entry point because although it's still challenging to play, if you're not that used to playing death metal, it's still sort of achievable compared to sort of some of the more technical stuff that have come through in the later years. Anyway, so so this is the third track of the album. What I'll do is I'll take you through all the riffs. Hopefully, shouldn't be pretty plain sailing. Apart from the middle section, that's a little bit challenging to play because of sort of some meter changes. Overall, the song is not the hardest one on the album. But anyway, without much further ado, let's have a look at Together as One. Together as One. Right, okay, so now let's delve into the actual song. So we're in standard D, so everything is tuned down a whole step. So let's have a look at the first intro riff for this song. There's actually two guitar parts in here. So let's have a look at guitar one. Let me play it to you first and I'll break it down. Okay, all right, so this is all a tremolo pick section, and I've explained this before. Whenever you're playing a tremolo pick section, especially with straight 16s, one thing to first do to really get the melody in your head before introducing the subdivisions is actually try to crotchet down the melody. So play the melody in crotchet or in quarter notes, and then look at what the changes are happening. So once you actually start introducing a bit of speed on your picking, you'll know exactly when those changes are happening. So actually, let's have a breakdown of that riff, and then we'll see what's going on. We're starting on the second fret of E, then going straight to the fourth fret of A, then back to the second fret of E, then we're going 4-5 on the A, and then back to this time on the third fret of E. So that's the first part of the riff. So yeah, we've got two beats on the second fret of A. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. That's the actual melody underneath. Now, what happens on the second part of the riff? We're doing the same thing. Second fret of E to the fourth fret of A. Then we're going second fret of E, then fourth fret of A again. And this time, instead of going up, we're going to the third fret of A and land on the first fret of E. So that's how the riff is actually broken down. So we go. And now if we tremolo pick it. Okay? Right, okay, keep your wrist very supple on this. Remember when you're palm muting, perhaps you want to palm mute a bit less when you're going up to the higher strings like A, so that some of the melody notes can come through a bit better. Okay, now there is a second guitar on top of this, which interestingly is playing up a fifth of an octave. So we're basically playing from the fifth fret here, which in concert pitch would be A. So we're gonna move that up an octave onto the seventh fret of D and play exactly the same idea with a little sort of caveat there. So we're gonna start from here. Let me play it for you. Okay, now what we're doing here, we're playing the 7th fret of D, then going to the 9th fret of G, back to the 7th fret of D, then we go into the 9th fret of G, and then here on a lot of times, I've seen a lot of times putting that sort of 10th fret there, but that's actually not right, because, and I'm going to explain that, if you play that 10th fret there, you're going to end up playing an F, which actually is going to clash with that F down here. So if you listen carefully to the recording, we are going 7, 9, 7, 9, then we're going to the 11. We're going to the 11th fret there, okay? And then we're back onto the 8th fret of D, so we're going. And then the second part of it is pretty much following what's going on underneath. 7th fret of D, 9th fret of G, 7th fret of D, 9th fret of G, then we go to the 8th fret of G, and then we end up on the 6th fret of D. There you go. And that's for the intro riff. So you've heard both guitars. So if we just play again, both guitars one after the other, you can hear that. Now just to, I forgot to precise that, that's at the end bit, we're actually single picking those notes at the end. If you can put some pinch harmonics on there, so we're going 7th of the D, 9/6 on 9/8 on the G, and 6th of D with some pinch harmonics, that will sound amazing. All right, okay, so from here we're gonna move on to the verse riff. So let's have a look at that. Right, okay guys, so now let's have a look at the verse riff. So what's going on in the verse riff? I'll play it for you and then I'll break it down. Once again, there are actually two guitars playing slightly different parts. All right, let's go. Okay, so let's have a look at that verse riff. So again, we tremolo picking everything again. So listen out for again when the chord changes are happening. So what was going on? We're playing the open E to the first fret of E. Then we're going open E, then to the second fret of E, and then to the first fret of E. And then back to the open E, and then with first fret of E, and then that's when we pull the little tail of the riff. So it's going. All right, so what's happening here, the little tail of the riff? We're playing like a diminished idea starting from the first fret of E. We're going 1, so 1, 2, 3. So 1 on the E, 2 on the A, 3 on the D, then. Right, so then we're going onto the second fret of A 4th fret of D, like a B power chord. So then onto the 3rd fret of A, and then onto the 2nd fret of E to the 3rd fret of E, 3rd fret of A. So let me play that little tail. Okay, so if we play that very slowly, what we end up with is this. Okay, now what's happening on the second guitar? Everything else is exactly the same as this guitar, but we're gonna play the tail up an octave. So we're gonna go from here on the 8th fret of A, and gonna play exactly the same thing up an octave. So we're starting on the 8th fret of A, 9th fret of D, then 10th fret of G, then we're gonna go 9 on the D, 11 of G, then 10 of D, and then we're gonna play 9 of A, and then we're gonna do 9 on the A and 10 on the D. Yeah, I guess I'll play like a flat 5 there. Okay, so. Okay, and that's for the sort of the verse riff. Again, try to listen out for both guitars as they're coming in. Just be very careful. This part is actually quite slow to play. So when you're chugging on your E, generally down here, really control your 16th note. So. You really got to find that sort of groove, that sort of very mid-paced death metal groove from the 90s in there, which is not an easy thing to do because the natural inclination for all guitarists is to speed up on these bits. So really try to keep it slow. I remember when I was actually recording the cover for this one, I spent quite a lot of time on this particular riff because especially when you're doing both guitars, recording both guitars, just make sure they're super tight because one thing guitarists always struggle with is keeping sort of a very even 16th notes. It's a very common issues with guitarists. So try to really lock yourself in with the drums and really try to keep a sort of very steady pace underneath, especially at lower speed. We've got a habit of speeding up our 16th notes, so just be very careful of that. Right, okay, then comes the next part, so let's move on to that. Right, okay guys, so now what we're gonna be looking at is riff number 3. Okay, so this is again split in 2 parts. I'll break you down to 2 parts and then we'll see what's happening on both guitars. Right, okay, so we got one guitar going like this. Okay, so what's happening here? So we've got an open E power chord, and then we're just gonna tremolo pick the open E after that, and then land on the 4th fret of E with the G sharp power chord. So. And then we're gonna groove along for an entire bar over that 4th fret. Then we're gonna go back to the E power chord with a little chug on the E, and then we're gonna go to the 3rd fret on a G power chord there. Now we're gonna repeat that. We're gonna repeat that second time, but this time what we're gonna do, we're gonna accent some of those power chords. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna start again with that open E power chord. So what we're doing here, we're playing the open E power chord, going up to the 4th fret here to play a G sharp power chord, and then repeat that power chord after every beat. And then do the same from the 3rd fret. Okay? Right, then on top of this, you've got another guitar that's basically doing some octaves. So we're gonna start on the second fret of A to play an octave, and this is how it sounds like. Okay, right, let's have a quick look at what's happening with that riff. So we're starting on the second fret of A to play octaves, so second fret of A and fourth fret of G, making sure the D string in between is muted. We're going second and sliding up the octave to the sixth fret. Then we come back to the second fret, and then this time slide it up to the fourth fret. So we're effectively highlighting what those chords are doing underneath. And then we go again, second fret to the sixth, and then to finish it off, we run up to the 10th fret of A for the octaves. And that's for the third riff of this song. All right, so guys, let's have a look at the next riff now. It's a little bit of a variation of the previous riff, but let's break it. Let's play first, and then we'll break it down. Okay, all right. So it's a fairly simple little riff. It's got a bit of sort of 80s metal kind of feel to it if you sort of take away the sort of extreme metal drumming on top of it. So all we're doing here is that we're playing an open E power chord and then basically playing 4 open E's there. Then we go heading up to the 6th fret here of A, so playing a power chord from there, so effectively an E flat, and then do another sort of four sort of chugs on the sixth fret there. Then we go down to the D power chord on the 5th fret, and then back down to the open E. So. Right, so what we do when we go back to that E, we play again the same thing. Then this time around, instead of going to the 6th fret, we go straight to the D. And then we're doing the same thing from there, so from the 5th fret of A there. And then a C sharp. Okay, and then we're back to the E power chord, all right? And what happens here is that that riff sort of launches you into the chorus riff of the song. All right, so that's for this riff. Now let's have a look at the chorus riff. Right, okay guys, so now we're gonna look at the chorus riff, the sort of groovy riff of this song. If you remember the previous part, we sort of ended up on an open E, which suggested we're gonna play that riff again, but actually we don't. We launch into the chorus riff, so the chorus riff comes at this point. And let's play it first and then we'll break it down. Okay, all right, so what's happening here? We're starting off with the E power chord that's effectively a remnant of the previous riff. Then we're going into a G sharp power chord, into a third G power chord, and then we start basically pedaling on that third fret of E. And what we're gonna do here, the timing is a little bit funny here. We're gonna be basically playing it up for an entire bar plus an extra beat. So we're gonna go. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and then we're gonna introduce the chord again. So G sharp and then into an F. So we're gonna go to an F and then we're gonna land here onto the open E. Now this time we're gonna land on the open E, and what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna actually pedal turn on the E for 1.5 bars. So we're gonna go 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and then we're gonna go 3, 4, back into the G sharp and G. And that's effectively how the sort of chorus riff is felt. So you're basically chugging a bit less on the sort of third fret of E, and then a bit longer on the open E. Okay? So watch out for it. There's a lot of little calls of the drums that sort of suggesting that you've got those little breaks. So listen out for those things. It's a little bit tricky to get to the timing of that bit initially. All right, and that's for the chorus riff. So one more time, let me show you that riff again. Okay, all right, and that's for the chorus riff. This now takes us on to the riff under the guitar solo. Right, okay, so what do we have now is the riff under the guitar solo. Now, if you're familiar with Death, you may have heard this particular riff or sort of a variation of it played on Spiritual Healing, on the song Spiritual Healing. It's a very similar kind of idea on the verse riff. So what we're doing here, we're just playing an open E power chord. It's a very simple backing over the guitar. So it's basically playing between the E and the F just to really bring out the Phrygian sound in Chuck's solo. Right, okay, so what's happening here is we're going. Right, okay, so all it is, we're just going 4 chugs on the E, 1 and 2 and then we're doing a double, sort of down up on the next one. and then again another 4 chugs on the E, and then a little bit of a sort of roll, a little bit of a roll on that last open E into the F there. So it's just. There you go. That's as simple as that for the verse riff, and it just goes on like this through the entire guitar solo. All right, and that's for the solo riff. So what we're going to do in the next part, we're going to look at the bit that comes after the solo, which is probably the most challenging part of that song. Right, okay, guys. So let's have a look at the next section, which is arguably the most challenging section of this song, with lots of time signature changes. So it's just going to have to get your head around it because some of the riffs are sometimes shortened, so you have to get used to how to finish them and all, especially the endings. Sort of, you've got sort of some quavers chopped off and all that. So let's play it first, and then we'll break it down. Right, okay, so that's the entire section, and there's a stop at the end of that section that goes back into the intro riff, effectively. Right, okay, so let's have a look. There's one part that keeps coming back. It's basically this little power chord, this sort of arpeggiated power chord section. So let's have a look at that. We're starting on the 9th fret of A, then heading into the 7th fret of E. Then an open E, and then we just go down chromatically, play the 8th fret of A into the 6th fret of E. Okay, and then play the open E. Right, at that point then, we go into the 5th fret of E, and we go down, up, down on the 5th fret, with a sort of down, up on the 5th fret and open E. Right, and then we do the same thing from the 6th fret. Okay, now we repeat that riff, and this time around we swap the 2 notes. So instead of starting on the 5th fret, we start on the 6th. Okay, now we go back and do that again, starting on the 5th. And then what we do here, we stop just there. We actually play, so again, I was saying to you that we sort of chop riffs a little bit here. With an opening, we finish it there. Right, this is when we jump into the first little sort of tail with some really cool drumming parts underneath. So we start on the 7th fret of D, and then we jump to the octave down on the 5th. And then we go straight down to the 4th of E. And then hit the 6th fret of D, which is the octave again of G sharp. Then we play the bass note again of G sharp. And then we play the 6th fret of A. Then 4th fret again, and then an open E. Okay, right, then what we do, so let's just go again. Then we jump back to the 7th, we play the beginning bit again. So we go 7th fret of D, 5th fret of A, so, and then this time instead of going down, we jump up to the 7th of E. So, and then we hit the 9th fret of D, back to the 7th of E, sorry, and then the 9th of A, 7th of E again, and then an open E. So let's play that first bit again. Okay, now we play this part again. So we start again from the 7th fret of a D, dropping down to the 4th, into the 6th fret of A, open E. Then we go back to the 7th fret of A again of D. Sorry. Then straight to the 7th of E, into the 7th of E, into the 9th of D, back into the 7th of E, into the 9th of A, and this time we don't play the open E after that. We finish on the 7th fret of E, so that you can go back to this. Okay, so let's just have a look at this section very slowly. It's a trickier section to explain than it is to play. There you go, and that's for that little bit there. Right, at this point, we will be heading back. Into this riff. And doing exactly the same thing, varying between the 5-5-0 to 6-6-0. And then we stop there on the over here, and this is when we enter the final bit of this bit. Okay, so what's happening here? We go into the second fret of E, and then we go 5-4 on the D. And then we hit the second fret of E again. Again into the fourth fret of D, then again the second fret of E, then the fourth fret of A, and then an open E. Then we straight up jump up to the fifth fret and do the exact same shape from here. So we go fifth of E, into the eighth of D, seventh of D. Then hit the fifth fret of E again. Into the seventh fret of D, again fifth fret of E, seventh fret of A, and then fifth fret of E, open E, straight back down to the second fret. And we do the same thing here. Then we jump up again to the fifth, and this is what we chop again at the ending. We finish on the fifth fret of E, so we don't play the open E at the end. So every time we're sort of getting rid, so this is what actually causes those little time signature changes, because we're chopping off little notes, little quavers at the end of the riffs. Okay, so that's basically how that sort of whole middle section of the solo goes. This is the part I would say you need to spend some time on, because it is pretty tricky to get all these parts down accurately with the drums and all that. It's a very intricate little part, not a technically very hard part, but once you get your head around sort of the different shapes that are being played, it really is just a bunch of octaves that are played sort of with different time signatures. Right. Okay. Then we're sort of back into the final bit of the solo section, which is bringing this back. Right. But however, there is a second guitar this time around playing the same thing up an octave. So we're basically starting on the 11th fret of G, and then going into the 9th of D. And then with the chugs at the bottom remain there. So. Right, now what's happened on the last hit for both guitars, we go 6-6-0, and then we just play a power chord there to dead stop there on the sixth fret again on the B flat. Okay, which there's a stop there for I think 2 beats, and then we're back into the intro riff. Right. So that was the solo section. So what I was gonna say is that at this point, just like most songs by Chuck, we follow a very linear sort of songwriting process here, where we're going to be reintroducing all the ideas from the beginning of the song. Pretty much all the ideas are going to be reintroduced. So we got the intro riff again, from an arrangement point of view, the intro riff with the little guitar harmony, going into the verse riff, into the sort of the two pre-chorus riffs, into the chorus, and we finish the song with the pre-chorus. Which finishes with a big E chord that's held, and then a big sort of ending, big AC/DC type ending, and then a last sort of hit on the chorus, and then we stop dead the song. So if you sort of listen to the song carefully, you'll notice that that's effectively, apart from the middle section of the solo, which is different, which creates a bit of a sort of variation in the song, the first half of the song and the second half of the song are exactly the same, just like I said in a lot of songs by Death. I've mentioned this before, that Chuck had a very linear way of writing, where songs started and finished pretty much in the same way, or at least all the ideas of the first half are brought in the second half again. All right, now I hope this was useful. It's not, like I said, not a particularly difficult song to play, but again, it's one of those songs that when you start playing it in a band environment, it does get a little bit tricky to get all the sort of little middle changes in the middle, and also things like those like chuggy little riff, like, oops, let me take that off. Really try to control this kind of playing. It's very easy to get carried away as a guitarist to play them faster, or not always very equal. All right, now again, I hope this was useful. Until next time, stay safe and stay metal.